Episode 13, Don't Risk It TV. G'day, I'm Mick. Today, flying solo. Today is an interesting episode. It's about some updates to some of our previous episodes. Also, due to viewer response, I'm going to talk about some of the future episodes so you could plan to stick with us and see the upcoming stuff. So our first discussion point is the digital ID episode we put forward a few weeks back. I discussed with the people at Scantek. They're a major player in the recording of ID cards in nightclubs and licensed premises, and asked how would the digital ID system from Australia Post work in with the Scantek. Now, very technically, the answer I got was the system is able to actually scan it. There's no problem with the scanning, fitting into the machine, so on. But it's the software that the licensee has purchased, what level of software or program they've actually got. So very technically, you could go to one bar, which using a Scantek system, show them your digital ID from Australia Post, and wouldn't be a hassle. They could verify it, not a problem at all. You could then go to another venue, also using Scantek, and because they're not at that level of subscription to the system, might not be able to actually verify it. So we put out there, as I discussed, and Steve and I discussed in that episode, that there should be a very good policy in place with the licensed premises to what they're actually going to do. Are they going to upgrade their system to incorporate the new level with Scantek? Or are they going to say, no, we're not going to use that or accept that digital ID? But I would highly recommend, if a Scantek system's in place, contact Scantek and get the upgrade, and therefore there won't be any hassles. Also, due to some responses from that episode, it was also put out that the South Australian government is actually now putting forward the driver's licences for people in South Australia in a digital format. So obviously other government agencies are looking at this digital technology. So be prepared that you might get a person from South Australia, again, show you the phone, and that's their actual official ID card. That's their driver's license. So we would suggest again, what is the policy you're going to have in place for your venue if someone from South Australia comes across and has one of these digital IDs. Again, I would discuss that we look at using it, stepping forward into the future, using the technology, accepting it. I think it's a great idea. Now, some of the upcoming episodes, we've had some really great viewer input. So some of the topics we're going to look at is liquor licenses and special conditions. Some people do get confused with this. There's special conditions on a license. Look, I've worked some venues that, yes, they had a standard liquor license, but the special condition, one of them in particular, was had an outside smoking area, and it was a balcony. And the special condition on the license was there was a limit to how many people could actually be on the balcony due to weight. Now, normally, I mean, I could say it was the first time I've ever seen that. So I think it's a good topic that we discuss how to look at a liquor license, look at the special conditions that could be imposed on a liquor license, so we're actually compliant all the time. Some of the other topics we're going to look forward is the training of licensees, management and supervisors of late night venues. Yes, our concern is security, but I've actually been doing a lot of training on the advanced RSA courses here in Victoria, discussing with licensees and managers of how security and the licensees and managers of late night venues need to work in together. So that should be quite a good episode. We're looking at, and we touched on it before in the past, the protection of female patrons at late night venues. Okay, protection of female patrons at any venue, really. What do we do if there are problems? How can we minimise problems for female patrons? Okay, we need to look at managing vulnerable patrons at venues. Okay, so that would tie in together. But a vulnerable patron, that could be, or patron I should say, could be anyone with any sort of particular needs that need to be met. Okay, how do we work with that person? Okay, we look at also an episode of compliance and enforcement with liquor laws. Now, there are some people that are forever getting in trouble with liquor laws because they're just not complying. Okay, we need to look at, which would tie back into our liquor license, Are we following all the requirements of the liquor licence? Could we put forward best practice in our licensed venue? Okay, I've been asked to put forward an episode on the VCGLR. In the state of Victoria, we have the Gaming Authority and the Liquor Licensing Authority moved together. It's now called the VCGLR. So we'll have an episode specifically on them and their powers and what they actually do. Okay. We need to also look at emergency management. We discuss emergency management on the Certificate 2 and Security course, but some people got their licence a long time ago and they're not necessarily up on the requirements of emergency management. Do you, for instance, by Australian standards, do you practice to evacuate your premises at least 2 times a year? Now, I can think of major venues I've worked at that do it 3 times a year. They're required to close by law 3 times a year, so that's when they run their emergency management. Great exercise. Do we have all the equipment in place for an emergency situation? Okay. We're looking at, that also ties back into the evacuation of premises. Do we have the equipment for an evacuation? Have we practiced evacuation? Do we have an emergency assembly point? Does everyone within all the staff know how to get to the emergency evacuation point? Okay. A particular favourite subject of mine is first aid. So we'll be looking at first aid and patron safety, looking at first aid, basic CPR, and the use of defibrillators. I highly recommend that a defibrillator be in every venue, especially if your demographics of your clientele is slightly older. Not meaning that maybe a younger person can't have any sort of heart problem, but if you've got an older demographic, having a defibrillator. Okay. Dealing with drug overdoses. Now, I have particular issues about people and drugs. I don't tolerate in venues that I work. But if I have a drug overdose, what do we do? And what do we do right now to keep this person alive? Now, what happens with a person after that is not my concern. Let's keep the person alive. Okay. Look, another episode would be liquor licensing accords and forums. I've been quite lucky. I've been invited to a lot of forums in the last few months. Putting forward about patron safety and information from the crowd control sector to those forums for licensees and members of police. We're looking at security training roles and registration for the different states, and looking at what can we do as a venue best practice. How do we make our venue safe? How do we make our venue enjoyable to go to? How do we make our venue the most popular for people to actually come and enjoy and have a great, safe night? So there's a fair few topics there to go over for the next few months. Hopefully that you'll enjoy those topics. And look, we're having great response at the moment, but if you feel like you want to put forward a topic, go right ahead, drop us a line. Or if you'd like to actually come in, sit down with me in the studio and discuss a subject or a topic, it'd be great to have a chat. Lastly, what I'd like to put forward is this, that Don't Risk It TV, we're going to put forward a competition. Actually, we're going to put forward a few competitions. What we'd like to recognise is people within different parts of the industry. So our very first competition is, what we'd like is people to write into us or email into us the best crowd controller they know. Not the best looking one, the one that actually does the job really well. The best one they actually know. We'll draw it from a barrel, and AusSafe Australia is going to sponsor a free upgrade in first aid training course for them. Our other competitions we were looking at will be best patrolman, best control room operator, best investigator, so on. There's not a lot of recognition for people in the industry. There's plenty of people talking in the industry about, Joe Blow did such a bad job. Well, how about we put forward that Joe Blow did a great job, and we're going to reward that. So we'll start with the best crowd controller you know and why. And we'll draw that out and we'll announce it in a couple of weeks' time. As I said, AusSafe Australia will provide a first aid course upgrade for them as a prize. Anyway, thank you very much.